everyone. This is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. I've got an amazing episode that's coming up that please get a pen, paper. This is such an important subject. It's really on the mental journey and the emotional and mental journey of being a business owner and being an entrepreneur. And I have this gentleman, his name is Jose Berlanga. And Jose, he owns numerous companies over the years. He's got a company called HoustonianCapital.com. He's in the real estate business and other businesses. But this gentleman has a world of knowledge in growing companies, winning, losing, winning again. And we're going to candidly talk about, should you be in entrepreneurship? And if you are, what are the real rules that are there? And we're holding nothing back. So I really believe that you are going to more than enjoy this episode. And for those of you who are looking for revenue growth, revenue optimization, follow up in your business, you're not following up as you should. We built technology pieces around this, as well as we have training and advising services. If you're interested in that, reach out to me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com by email or dougbrown123 on LinkedIn. Let's go talk to Jose. Again, get a pen, paper, really take notes on this. I would listen to this episode numerous times. There's so many pieces of gold and beyond here. Here we go. Let's go talk to Jose. Hey, Jose, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. Thanks so much for being here today.
Doug, thank you for having me. It's great to be here as well.
And you're down in sunny Texas, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
That is correct. I'm in Houston, Texas.
Houston. And
energy capital of the world.
Yes, and becoming I think they'll make it to the third largest city. They've been trying to do that for a while, or second. I think they're trying to push out Chicago, if I remember correctly.
We're up there. We're getting very close to Chicago in many respects. Once you put all the you were mentioning Sugar Land, we have so many cities and submarkets that are just coming together where Houston is a monster. It's becoming we're trying to go after LA. I think Houston is projected to become the Los Angeles of the South.
Makes total sense to me. Actually, as I lived in that area, so it makes sense. And for those of you who are wondering, how big is Houston? Well, it took me well over an hour to drive across it without traffic, just so you guys know.
Yeah.
So Jose, why don't you tell people where you've been, what you're doing, and let's set the frame for this call.
Well, let's try to make that one a brief description. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for decades, close to 4 decades now, in a number of industries in the oil and gas, manufacturing, distribution, food industry. But I've spent a lot of years in real estate. This is a fun topic because I've been my own boss my entire career. I started very young. At the age of 17, I started a business and went on from there. One business led to another, different opportunities, different investments, different partners. I'm one of those very, very busy individuals that is always looking to do something. My brain never rests. And somehow I got into the real estate industry here in Houston, where we did a lot of new construction, single family developments in different parts of Houston. We did a lot of revitalizing of inner city developments, inner city neighborhoods that were forgotten throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And we were one of the pioneers in starting to invest in inner cities and rejuvenating these neighborhoods over the last close to 3 decades. Now we've done thousands of homes. It's been an exhausting journey of building in different models, different styles, different neighborhoods. But it's been fun, but very challenging. So there's a summary. Now I'm doing a lot of writing. I'm writing books and doing a lot of mentoring and that sort of thing, but still running my construction in real estate company.
Awesome. Yeah, and some of the things we were talking about just prior to starting the recording on this, folks, were, that business is very easy when you remove schedules, budgets, and people, right? And and so we're going to talk today about the emotional and mental journey of a business owner. And the reason that I'm so excited to do this is because a lot of people, we used to do these surveys over literally decades now, and they always come back to the same type of answers, right? I want more new clients. I want better quality clients. I want better marketing. And number four, sometimes number three, is I want to work smarter, not harder. I'm
Yeah.
exhausted, right? As you just said, it was exhausting, right? And
Yeah.
so and every stage of a business has its different challenges. I mean, when we start out, and if we're organically funding it on our own, we've got a revenue and a sales challenge right out of the gate, right? We got there. As we start to get to a certain place and we start to scale, we add people and we add systems and processes, so we have different challenges. So when we're talking about the emotional and mental journey of a business owner, if you could encompass it, like, you've been through the gamut. You've been building thousands and thousands of homes. You've been dealing with the inner city. I'm assuming government
Yeah.
contracts, all kinds of negotiations. If we could kind of sum it up, like, all right, you're going to be an entrepreneur. What should you be prepared for that maybe you didn't even think was ever even gonna? I don't mean a specific example of something, but what I'm saying is emotionally and mentally, how do we prepare ourselves for the game and how do we stay in that process throughout our careers?
Wow, that is a deep, very profound question. Let's try to start from the beginning. You must have thick skin.
Hmm.
You must have a lot of tolerance to pain, pressure, stress, deadlines, and have a very, very strong attitude to go and solve problems. One of those people that does not just ignore, avoid, or procrastinate issues and problems because they come at you from everywhere. I don't think that there's a simple map, a simple way to plan for entrepreneurship. Obviously, every business, every concept, every industry is different. Uh, there are certainly easier models than others. There are more cookie cutter businesses than others. There are some that are very owner intensive that require your participation on regular basis. So there are many examples, but if I had to give one, obviously there are many, but one very important one in preparing yourself is to go in with the understanding, with a notion that it's not going to be easy and that every day is going to be overwhelming. Preparing yourself uh, in a way where you don't set yourself up to fail, assuming that you're going to have a nice, easy, breezy day. Every time I go in thinking that my day is well planned, well designed, that I know how to address it and I know how to handle everything that I have on my plate, that is the day when I fail. But whenever I come in open-minded, thinking, all right, here's all the things that I think I have to do and resolve. But very likely I won't even get to those because the moment I wake up in today's world of craziness with emails and voicemails and texts and all kinds of messages coming at you when you're a leader, when you're the boss, like you said, when you're dealing with employees, people, schedules, budgets, there are going to be a number of things that are going to show up distracting you and avoiding, preventing you from moving forward. So you just have to sit calmly and address things in the order of importance in which you think are going to help your business progress. So, trying to stay calm and in trying to organize yourself. But obviously, we can talk for days about all the attributes perhaps that a CEO, a leader, or a business owner needs in order to stay in business.
Yeah, and I mean that sounds like overwhelming, right? Like right out of the gate, it's like, oh, geez, I'm gonna do this, and why would I do it, right? I mean that. So I actually want to ask that question, which is, I know why I do it. I suspect you know why you do it. why
Yeah.
should somebody be an entrepreneur? Like, because it sounds like, well, geez, if I just talked to somebody yesterday, for example, he's making, a near six figure, a double digit six figure income. And he's just like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I want to be on my own. And I asked him, why? What is the reason behind this? And he didn't really have a clear answer on that one. He just knew he wanted to get out. So why become an entrepreneur? Because I think that is a so important question that people should know. Uh, what is the purpose of actually becoming an entrepreneur and why do it?
There are different ways of looking at this. And of course, there are misconceptions about business ownership in entrepreneurship. The fun part of it that we associate with perhaps the reason behind this person, that the example that you're mentioning, is because we think that by owning our business, we all of a sudden own our time, own our
Mhm.
life, own our income, we control things, and all of a sudden our destiny and our results belong to us. Now, that is a true statement, but not right away, not in the short term. As the saying goes, it gets worse before it gets better. Every time you start a business or build a business, all the unknowns, all the variables that you didn't plan for are going to appear, show up, and you're going to have to address them. So there's that fun notion of being your own boss. But in order to get there, you're going to have to travel a very, very uncertain, rocky road, very, very complex, um, unidentified road of business ownership. And that's the part that most people don't get to see. Some understand it, and that's why they have the fear of going on their own. But others that jump in head first without doing enough evaluation or understanding of the business that they're getting into, um, they don't realize that they have to plan for the opposite of freedom in the early stages. Sort of like the good analogy is children. You want to have kids because they're going to become your best friends and your life companions, and you're going to have so many wonderful times. But at first, you're not going to sleep, you're not going to eat, you're not going to rest, and you're not going to relax. It's going to be a little bit painful, but eventually it starts bringing back a lot of other positive things. Eventually, you do get to those wonderful things as freedom, time for yourself, and yes, your finances. That can change your life if you succeed. Obviously, the statistics are difficult to overcome. Many businesses fail, but if and when you are one of those that actually figures out how to succeed in business, um, the financial rewards are there. You get to live the life. The sky's the limit. Your ability to build and multiply your business is in your hands. But yes, no, not many people see the sleepless nights, the headaches, the stresses that one must go through in order to get there.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of times you don't even realize what you're into until you're already into it if you haven't experienced it before. And it's like parenting, like you brought up parenting. I remember first child, it was like, wait a minute, this thing does not care about my time. It doesn't care about anything except its own purpose at this point, right? And so uh, and
Yeah.
having a family is a blessing, but as you said, it's certainly chaotic in the beginning, and you don't sleep. And having a business, I agree with you, is very similar. Now, I want to address this because there's so many people that go out there and say, "Oh, well, start your own business, be your own boss. Everything's going to be this way, and you will succeed." And you had just said that. Well, a small percentage of them really do succeed to a certain place. I see a lot of people have built themselves another job as a business, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's what they wanted. They want a higher paying job or a job where they can say yes and no to, right? So, but when we look at success, what are some of the things that you would recommend? Because you're on the other side of it now. You have gone through the I mean, you're still in it, but you're on the other side of the success coin. how are some ways to do this easier, faster, better, and not going to avoid the pain, but mitigate some of the pain that we would experience by just trying doing it on, say, trial and error?
A great question, because there are many ways to minimize the pain of business ownership and remove the risk factor, the uncertainty factor. The ones that come to mind immediately, number one is, before you go on your own in any given business, try to understand it. Get into something where you've actually already worked in for someone else. You learn in somebody else's business, and you take on that information, all that knowledge, and eventually go on your own. You're not going to start from scratch. I've made that mistake of getting into businesses that I had no clue. They sounded great. I put a group of people, talented people, where we had no idea what we were doing. And sometimes we succeeded, sometimes we didn't, but it made the road a lot more complicated. The other one that I would bring up is, try to get into something that you actually enjoy, that you like, that wakes you up in the morning ready to go, because that you're not dreading, that you're not just doing because you want to make money. When you wake up just thinking about how do I make money, you might end up with a lot of stress and a lot of work and no money. But when you wake up trying to do something with a mission, with a purpose, something that's exciting and fun, you have much better probabilities. The worst case is that you had fun and didn't make money.
Right.
Okay. But on the other case, you're not going to make money and you're going to have a miserable time. And I've done that myself. So, because in the early stages, you named it, you nailed it. You don't own the business owns you. You are now obligated to your partners, your investors, your lenders, your clients, your employees, the payroll, the expenses. You are the last one that it ends up being taken care of. And you have to go in with that notion. So obviously, again, every business is different. And you mentioned something else that is very important that happens to a lot of people, that has happened to me. While assuming or thinking that I was building a business, I was actually building a job for myself. I was building a practice, because I created a business that revolved around my participation, where I created very limited systems that without me, the business could not and would not move forward. It would not work. So the day that I was not there, whenever I was on vacation or whenever I was trying to do something else, everything came to a stop. So understanding whether you want a practice and you want to be the leader, the lead singer of your business, and you want to run it, that's perfectly fine, but be aware of it. For example, the doctor or the attorney or the architect that goes on their own and starts their own business, but without them, it doesn't work. They have to be there in order to produce. That happens in some cases. In other ones, you start creating systems, hiring people, training them to do your duties, and eventually you can detach from them. But if you don't plan for that in advance, before you know it, you are worse than an employee. You are demanded and requested and pulled in so many directions where the right becomes miserable. I've been there many times.
Yes, and unfortunately for me, I have too, and I fully understand what you're saying. And I love what you said, first understand it, right? Because there's a business of the actual business, and I have found there's also a business of how to run a business. They're
Yeah.
they're they're linked, but they coexist independently. I mean, they coexist independently. And so, if you didn't quite catch that, I wanted to come back to it because what Jose said was so important. You've got to understand the business of the business you're walking into, because if you don't understand that, then you've got to learn the actual business of that business. And that takes a lot of time, money, energy. You make mistakes. And seemingly what would work in one business may not work in that business that you just entered into, using the same principles you used in a previous business. I've seen this happen so many times, Jose, where somebody who's been very successful in one business, they go, oh, I'll just buy this other business and I'll go in and I'll do the same thing I did in the other businesses. Is like, we can't get clients. We can't, it's
No.
not working, right? So, I would explain it this way to everybody. Think of yourself, if you go to another country that doesn't speak your language and you're dropped into that country and now they only speak their language, not your language. Wouldn't you have been better off preparing for 6 or 9 months to learn that language before you actually hit the ground and you had to go find a job and find work and build a business? So I think that's an excellent point you're bringing up. And enjoying what you do. My father said this to me early on, Jose, and I never really got this. He said, Doug, whatever you do, enjoy what you do. Work at what you love because you're going to have to work at something. And I never really got it until later on in life. But what I believe he was saying was, when you have a business, it's like any other relationship. You're going to put energy and time, and if you don't enjoy that relationship, it's really like being in a miserable relationship. And
Yeah.
I had a business one time where the business literally was gonna, without me doing anything, it would double and then maybe double again the following year. I mean, it was like set up just to go, right? We set it all up, but I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, I got to get out. So I tried to sell because I wasn't in a relationship with that business that was um, beneficial to me.
Yeah.
It made a lot of money, but money, folks, isn't going to do it when you're miserable.
Yes, yes, yes. And I'd like to point out something very important that you bring up there. What is the meaning of success? The meaning of success is when you're waking up happy to go and perform an activity. So owning a business, making money does not guarantee your happiness. There are people who are making a bunch of money. I've been there. When I walked away, just like you mentioned it, I walked away from a business because I was miserable. Every day I was dreading getting up and dealing with the headaches and dealing with all the issues that came my way. There was no money that could make me continue perform these activities. Uh, and at some point you have to understand that ultimately your life is limited. You know, the number of years that we're here are limited. You have to be humble enough to know that it's not all about money, number one, but also humble enough to know something else that you mentioned, that you need to be aware of the fact that we don't know everything about our business or every business. When you get into a new area, you have to have that learning curve and spend time learning it and assume that it's going to take some time before things start working. And what a recommendation is, for example, when you build a business where there's repetition, it's much easier to delegate activities.
Yeah.
But when you have a business that's highly creative, that requires decisions, that constantly has new projects, it requires ownership and leadership. These are some of the definitions of the different types of businesses. It's not the same running a franchise where every day the duties are so repetitive than owning a design creative um, company or entity where everything has to be different every single day and you require a different mindset. For a good example that I've been through is growing a business. A small business, even within the same industry or the exact same product, is not the same as when you begin to grow. Once you start growing, it becomes completely different, a different animal altogether. You require different strategies, a different team, different know-how, different layers of management and a way of operating your business. So that's interestingly enough, that's when a lot of businesses grow. I'm sorry, fail when they're growing
Mm.
because they don't identify that everything they're doing, even your activities, your personal activities as an owner, as an operator, have to adjust. You cannot continue doing the same things that you were doing on a daily basis when you have a small business as to when you're growing it. So being able to have an open mind and adapting to those changes is crucial in staying in business.
That is an excellent point. As we grow, or the business, let's say it accelerates faster than we're used to it going, and we're at a different place, we now need different skill sets and we need different uh, level of team members
Yeah.
that if we, and otherwise the business will kind of get stuck or at least stutter through the process. It's kind of like, guys, those of you, like, okay, this makes sense. It's kind of like driving a car around a corner, right? I mean, if you drive a car around a corner at 40, miles or, 60 kilometers an hour, and you can take that corner fine. But now when you bring that from 40 miles an hour to 90 miles an hour, it is a different corner. Corner's the same, but getting around that corner is going to take a different level of skill. And
Very different talents in a different group of people that need to manage that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I've experienced that where, at one time I had a team of 166 people reporting to me, and it was like very different than having six reporting.
Yeah.
And different structure of managers and things of that nature. And folks, I'm not bringing this subject up to dissuade you from doing this. I was so grateful that Jose is so skilled in this subject matter, because what I'm wanting out of this podcast is you to go, okay, I know what I'm in and I can do this, but now I know what I'm actually prepared for. You don't want the time to learn to fight is not when you're in the middle of a fight, right? That's why, people go to karate classes and learn to fight or whatever, right?
You
Or to
have to
defend yourself,
prepare.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I agree.
Jose, I have a question I wrote down in the beginning. Um, how important, like all of this is going to happen no matter what type of business they enter into. I love the repetition thing, because the repetition is like, that's scalable, right? That's something that, that folks think McDonald's, they run them with teenagers, right? No
Yeah.
disrespect to all you teenagers. I was one, but we're not the most focused individuals at that time of our life. I mean, I was
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
interested in getting a date with the girl who ran the front counter than I would be actually preparing anything for the business.
Yeah.
Um, but being clear, like truthfully clear from the beginning about what we want as an outcome from our business, how critical is that? Or maybe it's not, right? Maybe it's like that changes over time. But how critical is it to understand, like, hey, I'm here in a year or two, I want to be here, and maybe in a year or two, I want to be here, but this is the path I know I want to go.
You have to have clarity. I talk a lot about your mission, your vision, your objectives, where you want to get to. And the more clear you are in those aspects of not only your business, but your career and your life, the better you can visualize them, the easier it will be to get there. You cannot get in a car and get anywhere if you have no direction. You can start going in circles and get nowhere. How have you ever gotten in your car uh and said, okay, I want to go have dinner, but I don't know what I want to eat. And 30 minutes later, you're driving around trying to think of a place. You're never going to get there unless you go, oh, I want to eat this food. And now you have a direction. Now you have a strategy. Now you will get there shortly or faster. But the most important thing about this aspect is I'm going to tell you something that most people are not prepared for. They, if you are prepared to make money and to be successful, you have to be prepared to take the punches, to go backwards at times, and understand that success is not going to be a straight line. You're going to have a random good day and three or four bad ones, and three or four bad weeks, three or four bad months. I've had bad years. But because I kept going through those bad years, eventually one random day, I was back on top. And if you cannot stomach losing and defeat and adversity and bad days and bad months, you're not going to get there. You have to be aware that there are more bad moments in business and in entrepreneurship than good ones. But those good ones will get you there. You don't need quantity of good days. You need quality of good days. So the road is so difficult. And if you cannot handle that, those ups and downs and those setbacks, and you eventually just drop everything and walk away, it's not going to happen. You have to understand that it all comes together. That's the hard part about entrepreneurship, that we get defeated. We get discouraged when all of a sudden, even today, I'm going to tell you something that close to 40 years after running and owning businesses and starting them and dealing with every headache imaginable, I still have them today. Okay, from a different perspective, as you mentioned, the analogy of the children, they never go away. Maybe they don't need to be micromanaged, but I still have those worries. I still have to be in touch with my staff, with my team, asking questions, solving problems. Maybe now I get to do it at under my guidelines and my schedules and my own locations, and I set the rules. But the worries and the concerns and the responsibilities never go away. They just start changing. Those responsibilities and those stresses, they change, but they don't necessarily go away. As of today, I mean, I'm still dealing with problems, for example, not at a greater scale. You know, the size of the problems and the number of zeros in the equations that you're playing with start increasing. A good example is, for example, all these interest rates that change. Once we felt that we were very, very well established and diversified in real estate, we had a lot of problems with commercial buildings and commercial tenants renewing notes and things like that. So it's never fully safe and secure, and you're never fully done in the business world. But you do make progress, and you start looking at things from a much bigger perspective. So it gets more entertaining and interesting. But my point, the stress and the pressure remains. It always stays there with you.
I think, what you just said to me reminds me of just the analogy of life, right? It's, are we ever really safe and secure? I mean, at times, but we always have certain things like, I found out one day I went to a restaurant, came out and was feeling sick in the parking lot. And I was like, what is going on, right? Immense pain. Anyways, they brought me to the hospital and the doctor said to me, hey, we've got to operate and take out your gallbladder. And I was like, well, I can't do that. I have an investors meeting next week. It's like, that was my response. And I said, I'll eat right and I'll come back. And he said to me, Jose, he goes, I don't think I'm making myself clear. Doug, your gallbladder, a normal one is like maybe this thick. And he held up his hand. And then he said, yours is 3 times that size. It's about ready to burst. And if you walk out of here, you'll probably be dead soon. And I remember my dad had the same thing, Jose. So I was like, remember when I was a little boy, seeing my dad in the hospital, like all the tubes in him and stuff. So I'm like, all right, let's go, right? The point I'm trying to make to people is that exactly what you're saying, I didn't plan on that day. I didn't plan on any of that type of thing that day. I didn't plan on, being in the hospital. I didn't plan on any of that. And we're going to have those days in business, but we're going to have other days that aren't like that. And if we can hit more doubles, triples, and home runs, then the strikeouts don't really matter. It's one of those things, it matters at the moment. We always, like, oh my gosh, this is happening, right? But in the bigger scheme of life, safe and security, it's sort of there, but it's really not, because there's so many things that are trying to take away that safety and security. One of us being aging and health and, environmental factors or whatever the heck we want to call it, right? Just decisions, right? They can, I married the wrong person, I married the right person, right? I mean, some of those things just happen. And I'm hearing you say that we've got to actually condition our mind to constantly work on ourselves, constantly work on our skills, and grow that, as you said in the beginning, thicker skin and that emotional muscle in order to play the game of entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. You need to have it. We never have anything assured, even when you're on top. I've been on top several times at multi-million millionaire status in something out of my control, changes in currency or economic changes or major competitors that shifted markets, and I was wiped out of everything
Hmm.
in a very short period of time. It's scary, and if you don't have that ability to just move on and start again and figure it out and get creative and fight back and push back because life is going. We tend to think that life is pushing very hard on us. Me. Why is my life so hard? No, it's hard for most of us. It's just that some of us are willing to fight back and push back and get better results. But we all have to push, we all have to fight. It is an ongoing, in that thick skin part of it is not only ideal in the business environment, it's necessary. When we start, um, in business, maybe you're struggling over a few $1,000s. You're a few thousand up, a few thousand down, then a few 100,000 up, few hundred. Then there's days when I'm a few million up, a few million down. The feeling is very similar. The fears of business are very similar. Now you're just dealing with bigger numbers. If you didn't have the stomach to deal with it when there were smaller numbers, you're not going to have the ability to deal with it
Yeah.
when it's bigger numbers and be
Yeah.
able to juggle those and stomach those bad days. Are they fun? No, absolutely. They never get any easier. But you start earning the right to be there and gaining practice and gaining strength and awareness and perhaps a little confidence to know that you're going to get through it. Somehow you're going to move on.
Well, and would love to have your, yes, Doug, this makes sense, and no, this doesn't make sense. To get through it, I always go back to a formula: money in minus money out equals outcome. And so when you're in the down days, we got to bring the money in. And we got to watch what the money is doing going out, because if it goes out too fast, then we end up in down days as well. And the reason I would love to have your feedback on that formula, Jose, and the reason I bring it up is because I remember one time we were losing $20,000 a month. And at that point, it seemed like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna not make it through life here. Right? It was like
Yeah, yeah.
I was just at that phase in the business, and it was like we were working and bringing money in, but we were just every month we were $20,000 short. And I'm like, this is going to be $240,000 at the end of the year. I still have to pay this back, right? And I got to pay the employees, and I got to pay this. But then I watched television, and Ted Turner, it was said he's losing $20 million a day
Yes.
at Turner Broadcasting. And I was like, so, like, how? Like, how did this man like just deal with this $20 million? I'm losing 20,000 a month. He's losing 20 million a day, right? And he got through it. We got through it. And but I go back to that formula of money in, money out equals outcome. And I found that really have served me through most of my life. I'd like to have your feedback on it, because we're having a really truthful, candid, just open up the kimono conversation on entrepreneurship. So, what are your thoughts?
It is it's such an interesting topic. The investment part, the money that needs to come in order for things to happen in managing it. I talk a lot about the difference between profitability and cash flow. I'm a cash flow person. I don't want to run out of cash, even if I'm losing money. A business can survive losing money. Look at the big empires that for years lost and lost and lost money, but they were moving forward in certain aspects that gave them the confidence to keep raising capital or to keep operating their businesses. I always focus on not running out of cash, because you can have a lot of assets, and if you don't have liquidity, you can go out of business instantaneously.
Yeah.
So you have to plan for all those. I observe our cash flow needs, and you made a good point. Understanding what you need, when you need it, what is it that you require in your business in order to get to the next phase or to start making money. It's something that I pay a lot of attention to. There's something interesting that you mentioned, losing money. There, I'll tell you a quick story. Like although I've lost businesses in a very quick, very fast period of time, one of the most traumatic, call it, most impactful periods of my life was the financial crisis of 2008 and 9. We had a pretty big size business where our cash flow demands requirements were in the neighborhood of $1.2 million a week.
Mm-hmm.
When our income stopped, all of a sudden that cash kept going out without coming in, as you mentioned it. We started diluting very, very, very quickly, and it was one of the worst feelings. Which brings me to the point. I mean, for several years, we lost millions of dollars just supporting the business, and we couldn't just get out because we had liabilities and we had loans and we had contracts, lenders that we had to apply by. So it was nothing but watching your money disappear a little bit at a time. It's one of the scariest, most uh, horrific circumstances that you can be in the business world. But during the good years, what helped us and what I recommend entrepreneurs is to not assume that you're going to do well forever. When you start doing well, start putting money aside, manage your growth. Don't get too eager to grow too fast. Don't get too comfortable or confident because there will be moments in time when things will change and you will need those savings and you will need that money put aside, at least to sustain yourself, to support yourself in those bad moments. So, however, to your point, you need to. There's that saying: you need to invest money to get money. You need to put money out there in order to get it back. So, investing and risking, the word risk is one synonym of business, synonym of entrepreneur. You have to risk money and time, and that's part of the craziness of being an entrepreneur. That imagine that you're going to work without a paycheck, you're investing your time, your money, sometimes other people's money, sometimes you're even getting in debt, risking your credit to see if you get it back plus a profit. So you're playing this very, very risky gamble. And if you're not ready for it, if you don't have that vision and that personality, it's difficult. It's difficult to attempt it. So, but yeah, investing is part of it, and it's part of the American dream. It's what makes this country what it is. We have that spirit in this country of risking capital. This is a country where many people are ready to do that in order to find new ways of doing things, innovation. So something that I'm very accustomed to now. But it's not easy when things don't go your way. It's never going to get easier. So you have to know that in advance.
I really appreciate you coming on here and having this conversation because it's a conversation that I think anyone who's listening to this podcast, by the way, folks, please share this out with other people because other people who, Jose and I'll say, myself as well, we have a lot of experience in doing this, and there are times where I don't know about you, Jose, but there are times I've asked myself this question, why did I do this? Like, what? I got myself in this position. But it's that old song, that Frank Sinatra made popular, That's Life, right? Sometimes you know,
You're up and
shot
you're
down in
down.
April and up in May, that type of thing. And it's part of the natural process, and those of you in Europe and Canada, the process of what you would go through. and you won't avoid it. It's just one of those
Yeah.
things. So if you're going to be in entrepreneurship, run by the rules of the business. Heed what Jose's so eloquently and truthfully presenting to us here today. Jose, how do people get a hold of you if they want to know more about you? You said you were writing and doing things. What's the best way to get a hold of you or learn more
Uh,
about
they can go to my website, joseberlanga.com. And there's links to all of my social media. My book, The Business of Home Building, is on Amazon, and my second book, Dirt Rich, which is about land development, land investing, and land speculating, is going to be out in a few weeks. So I'm having fun though. Interestingly enough, I'm writing a book about entrepreneurship, just about this specific subject, the preparation, the mentality, the attitude, the mindset, the characteristics, the lifestyle of an entrepreneur. What are some of the things that we need to plan for and understand what it means? All of this, I'm putting it on a book. It's a very, very fun, intriguing topic for me, and I'll leave you with this interesting thought because it might help your audience, or at least it might help someone out there, because I have many, many moments of stress and pressure where I ask myself that question. I ask myself two questions. What am I doing? And why am I doing this? But most importantly, was all of this worth it? I ask that question sometimes. Has this level of pressure that I've endured throughout the years been worth it? When I could have had a much more relaxed, laid back process of this thing called life. And I come to the conclusion that it was worth it. It was tough, it was difficult, but the appreciation that it gives you for the things that you acquire based on your sole efforts are incredible when you get there. And the big satisfaction that I get comes not only from helping people around me, but I sit and think, in a few years, when I'm old, when I'm on my deathbed and my life is over, which route will I regret the most? Sitting around procrastinating, thinking about attempting the things that I want to attempt and do the things that I know I'm capable of achieving, or actually doing them? And the response is always the same. I'm going to regret not trying, not doing, and having just thought about it without actually executing them. So that gives me the strength. Just I forecast, I fast forward in my mind and go, which one am I going to regret the most? And the fear of not attempting and trying and being the best version of myself, that fear is the one that removes all other fears and makes me continue doing what I have to do, even in my bad days. I just know that one day I'm going to be more proud of myself if I at least tried.
I mean, that's the definition of a quality life, right? I mean, if we're looking back on our lives, and we all do, like I do a lot of reading on centurions, people that passed 100, or people who are, in hospice, let's say, and they're not going to be around here much longer. And they all have they say the same things at that stage in life, right? I wish I had a bet on myself more. I wish I had maintain better relationships with whoever. I wish I didn't live in fear in this capacity. I wish, and what you said encapsulates all of that in the business world, but it's really not about business. It's about how do you want to live your life through this whole process of life? And are you going to live it in the dream world, or are you going to live it in the application of the dream world? And that's what I'm hearing you say. You choose that side. And I find that amongst most entrepreneurs. But there is a smart way of doing this, folks, and there is and a smarter way of doing this, and Jose is bringing forth. So, Jose, thanks so much for being here on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. I'm so grateful you're here and we're having this conversation.
Doug, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much again, and I hope to see you again soon.
I look forward to it. I'm not usually dumbfounded on where to start with my notes in this, but I have so many. Um, and certainly, the emotional and mental journey here as a business owner is one that I believe it's for everybody if they're up for that journey. And what I loved about our conversation was it was really an analogy for life, not just an analogy for business. You are going to have up days, you're going to have down days, you are going to have things that are going to happen where you're like, wow, this is amazing, this is going great. And then something suddenly changes or over time starts to change. And you've got to be able to adapt to that change. And without that mental fortitude to be able to adapt in that process, it's really, really difficult to try to get up every single day and force yourself through that. So my advice on this is please listen to this numerous times, this episode. Just sit down, pull it apart, pull out all the nuggets for you, start applying these principles. Remember, I heard this from Alan Weiss once. He said, if you get 1% better a day and in 70 days, you're twice as good. I ran the numbers out for a whole year and it's 37 times better. So if you just get a little bit better every single day at whatever you're trying to improve, you'd be surprised in a few months how much ground you would have gained if you stay consistent, right? Consistent and very interested, and you're truthful with yourself about here's really where I want to go, here's where I'm at, and here's how I believe I'm going to get here. And you just keep taking one step a day, every single day. It may take you longer than you figure, and it may cost you, and it usually does cost you a lot more in money, time, and energy than you figured. But you just keep going and have that mental fortitude, and you will work through the process, and you'll come in to the place that you wanted to be or the place that you should be. Even I think is even more important, and that could be far beyond where you originally thought you wanted to be. And then you can make the next decision from there, right? All right. So as always, I tell you, go out and sell something and make people happy, right? Because we're in the business of actually producing smiles on people's face when we play win, win, win. No need to manipulate. You can persuade, but no need to manipulate. Make sure they win, you win, and someone else wins out of the subject matter of what you're selling, right? Whether it's a service or a product. And do it ethically so they are getting what they need, you are getting what you need. It is the strongest sale in the world, and you can spawn far more referrals. If you're looking to have your revenue grow, you're looking to optimize that, get a little more profit into your business. You're not following up as you should. And you really don't have a system or a process around the above of what I just said. Reach out to me by email, Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com. Reach out to me at LinkedIn at Doug Brown 123, and just let me know what you're looking for. I will, if I can't help you personally or the company here can't help you, we'll probably have a resource that can help you. So until next time, go out and make people happy, sell a lot of it, watch your discounts, convey value, you won't have to discount, and to your success. This is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. Until next time, thanks for being here. If you love this episode, please give it a 5-star review. I'd be forever grateful.